Hey, we're live. How you doing, folks? How you doing out there? Welcome to another Drink and a Wink info review. Good to be back and in front of the camera here. Pouring myself a little drink. It's been an interesting week here, and we're getting back into it. And surprise, I'm talking about bourbon again. We're still kind of fighting, seeing what we're going to be featuring more as we move on here. But for the moment, we're going to talk a little bit about bourbon. What's interesting is, I don't like this angle. Let me change that just a second, and then we'll get going here. There you go. Look at that. Okay. There you go. Now you can see some things a little better. Interesting week here, and before we get starting to have some fun, I am going to mention that it's been a crazy week in this neighborhood. I mean, we know about what happened. Well, no, we don't know what happened yesterday at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, but we had an unfortunate situation here. The hospital that we have gone to for a few times for many things, and for physical therapy, there was unfortunately I guess a prisoner that was in it was part of a robbery that was also not far from here, was taken to the hospital, and then somehow was able to get a gun and shot two Chicago Police Department officers. One of them has sadly passed, which is kind of a big shakeup for the neighborhood. And you know, this neighborhood, if you know about here, this Albany Park, southeast Albany Park area, we've had a lot of activity in this whether it's a lot of ICE stuff and all that kind of stuff. So this was, not to get political on it, it's just very sad that this has all went down. Apparently, I'm not getting confirmed on that, but the store that was also robbed, that this perpetrator was, that's not far from us. We've been in there many times. Anyway, let's get back to bourbon. Yeah, so we've been on, the bourbon kick. We've talked about some expensive bourbons, some cheap ones, some in between. We're talking about, prices going up lately. And I figured, like, you know what, let's start thinking about, talking about some things that are affordable and back to basics to a certain degree. So I was driving around today after seeing my dad, and went into the 7-Eleven in Park Ridge, Illinois, also where I went to high school. Once a dry town. Anyway, I was looking around, and they had a bottle of Very Old Barton on the shelf. Now, I did not buy it there. I went to Binny's because I think it was on sale, and I wanted to go to Binny's anyway, grab a couple other things, but picked up this Very Old Barton. Now, in the kind of history of bourbon, and we've talked about, our favorite value bourbons, Wild Turkey 101 always comes to mind. We did some other shootouts with a couple other ones, Evan Williams, what's the one that they have the year on? 1783, and all that. And both of those are in, lower to mid-20s in terms of price tag. We've talked about Benchmark, we've talked about Ancient Age, we've talked about a couple of the real cheapies. I'm not a big fan of Evan Williams, and I kind of always see Very Old Barton and go, oh, I should pick that up and check that out. Let me tell you a little bit about Very Old Barton. Very Old Barton is from the 1792 Barton Distillery. I'm going to kind of state that now and go backwards. The distillery is owned by the Sazerac Company, which is the same company that owns Buffalo Trace. Okay, and they are also the one that maybe you would see more often in stores is the 1792 Small Batch. They also produce this. And we're going to have a little sip of this as well, too. Okay. Going back a little bit farther in time, let's go actually to the beginning. All right, I did kind of some crowds. I just kind of jumped around and got some information on it. Very Old Barton is, first of all, the first thing about it is it comes and goes. It's kind of, sometimes you can only get it when you're in Bardstown, Kentucky, and then other times it'll show up in a store for a while, and then it seems like maybe more convenience stores that are getting some distribution from the Sazerac Company will sometimes have a Buffalo Trace and even more rare, a very old Barton around. The distillery was opened in 1889. It was founded by a guy named Tom Moore. Closed down around 1920 for Prohibition. Then they reopened it. The son opened it. Then he sold it. Blah blah blah. It became the Barton Distillery. It's always a little bit of a mystery because we don't know where the Barton came from. This company is known sometimes for using names that really don't exist anywhere. Or why not? I've heard all kinds of different lore, like the name Barton was won in a poker game, or one of the owners was playing when they just had to rename it, was playing poker with somebody, and whoever won was the end up. So apparently Barton might have been a very good poker player. Don't know. I'm going to breeze through this. The company has been sold a few more times, but in 2009, the Sazerac company purchased the distillery. The thing about that is interesting is I guess that Sazerac was really wanting to close the distillery down and just have Buffalo Trace use it as, I don't know, another distillery or probably more likely warehouse. But in 2001, before that sale, this emerged. And then they kind of decided, you know what, this is doing pretty good. Let's keep that around. And then we started seeing the return of the Very Old Barton. To add a little bit more to the confusion in this, Very Old Barton used to be, they have a bunch of different bottlings and different proofs. They have the 80, the 86, the 90, and this one, the 100. This is 100, however, it is not bottled and bound, but it is listed as straight. It used to be this 100 proof, used to be have an age statement of 6 years. Then they've taken that off. However, if it is listed as a straight bourbon, okay, this is Kentucky bourbon law and rule, and it's very confusing. It's amazing that a state that, well, I'm not going to make any shots at Kentucky, but man, these rules are all right. So if there's no age statement on there, that's cool, except that if it is listed as straight bourbon, okay, we need to know that if it's less than 4 years, they should have an age statement on there. Not very many companies do that. But if you're listing a straight bourbon, we know that this is at least 4 years. At least I think I know how the rules are. It's listed at this 100 proof one. It's supposed to be about 6 years, maybe 8. We don't know. The other thing interesting about the Barton Distillery is I remember, I think I was on a gig with my friend Stacy McMichael, and I think we mentioned this or something. We were talking about this. The company, the distillery in Bardstown. Now, this is supposed to be the the oldest continuing running distillery in Bardstown. Don't know, there's like, the continuing running distillery here, there, we always hear these different things, like Kentucky distilleries are always battling out for what's the oldest, what's the this, what's the that. In 2018, I remember this because I remember seeing it on the kind of the whiskey pages and then just on Facebook. They had a distillery warehouse collapse, and 18,000 barrels kind of rolled out and were destroyed. And then 2 weeks later, the rest of the warehouse collapsed. There was like no barrels left. I remember this. No one was injured, but I remember that that some of the bourbon that was spilled out of the broken barrels ended up into, I don't remember which lake or waterway it was, but about 800 fish died, unfortunately. There was some kind of, that when that happens, that, the government takes it seriously. Hopefully the company takes it seriously and stuff. Anyway, they've built some new warehouses, and they're rolling strong. The other thing about Very Old Barton, like I said, they have all these different proofs, and you won't see it, and then all of a sudden you'll see it out of nowhere. Final thing, when we're talking about budget bourbon, this bourbon is under $20, okay, that we're about to drink. It's kind of interesting. We're going to look at the barrel, or the bottle, 50%. Distilled by Barton Distillery, Frankfort, Kentucky. Distilled by Barton Distillery, Bardstown, Kentucky. Distilled by Barton Distillery, Bardstown, Kentucky. Bottled by Barton Distilling Company, Frankfort. Nothing on the back. One simple label. There you go. Boom, boom. crafted on the top. Now, a couple other things. I've seen some of the more bozo bourbon reviewers, uh, BBRs, talk about this one, kind of laugh, and you're judging reviewing a budget bourbon, and then they'll also see the very old bourbon and be like, "Well, there's no age debate in it. What's very old about this?" I get you guys are doing fine. You're crushing it, but it's a brand name, okay? Very Old Barton is a brand name, okay? It's not. They're not saying that it's actually old, okay? It's a brand name. Like I said, we don't even know where the name Barton came from. Another thing was interesting is that this came out in the beginning, and I don't remember what it was called. I think it was Ridgemont something, 1792, Ridgemont Creek, Ridgemont something. And it turns out that I heard today that there is no Ridgemont that it was named after. It was just a branding name. They dropped that. It's cleaner. And it's now just 1792. 1792 also has some fabulous foolproof and a couple of finishes. This is all their distillery, or at least for these two, are using a little high rye mash bill. Okay, and what else do you know? The mash bill is corn. I don't remember what the malted barley content is, but I do know the rye is pretty high at 15%. So what I've done tonight is I've poured myself a glass. I did try this a little bit earlier. The only thing in this price point that this is really contending with is Ancient Age, Benchmark, and Evan Williams, regular, and then Jim Beam. I can already tell you that, regular Jim Beam, this is crushing it. I love other Jim Beam products from Claremont, but this is already doing a good job. So what I did today is I poured myself a glass. I'm going to pour myself a little bit of 1792 as well. And then I also made kind of a Manhattan, or, kind of that, Rob Roy, with essentially the bourbon, some sweet vermouth, Koki to be exact, so kind of pretty pungent vermouth. Threw a couple of maraschino cherries in there, and then added both Reagan and Angostura bitters as a cocktail. I've been sipping on it. We'll talk about that. Let's get into the tasting on this. I'm drinking this. I can't even remember the name of this glass, but these are some glasses that Jeff Hedberg gave me, and fortunately, we lost one of them in the glass. What was that? What did I call it in the last video? The glass disaster of 2024. This one remains. I really like this one. It's a little bit wide, as you can see, and it's a little hard to get the nose. But what's cool is when you tip this one back in this glass, then you can get a second nose before you actually get it as the liquid comes over. As we can see here, nice typical bourbon color. On the nose, it's bourbon. Got a nice nose. A little nut, caramel, a little bit of that cherry scent. It's a nice nose. There's nothing exciting over it. It's just a bourbon nose. That's pretty much it on the taste. Right out of the chute, this is a high rye mash bill, no doubt about it. A little bit of sunflower seed kind of flavor. Sweet, but there's a lot of oak notes there for me. Peppery. A little bit of the butter, but not as much butter as we get from 1792. I did mean to check and see on Benny's and a couple other websites how much 1792 is. Anyway, going back to the Old Barton 100 proof. I like it. It has just a little more interest than some of the other value bourbons that I have here, or it presents a little bit more, in that there is some pepper and It's not overly sweet. It's a little, it's just got a hint of spicy going on there. I also have been drinking this cocktail, so I like it. I don't love it. I'm glad I bought it. Just to kind of get a taste. This will be a good mixer, and occasional with a cube sipper. I think I like this better than what was I gonna say? I think I like this better than Evan Williams for sure. This like the white, the one in the white. Uh, and again, we're talking about different price points. I bought this. I was out the door, and I handed her a 20, and I got change. I mean her. I mean the cashier. Holding a little longer. Get a little bit of the charred note here. A little more rice spice. There is a little bit of a funk, a duskiness that you might prefer, and that's the way I am with bourbon. At one point, I'm going to prefer that, and then all of a sudden go, oh, okay. In the cocktail. So again, like I said, this is mixed with a pretty pungent Koki Torino sweet vermouth. I actually like it in the cocktail better, which is nice because when you add the bourbon to that cocktail, Manhattan style cocktail, you kind of have to do a balance when you do that cocktail. Again, I'm not a mixologist, I'm not a bartender, but if you're using a real sweet bourbon, and then you also add kind of a pungent but sweet vermouth, that can be a kind of a funky blend that gets just a little overpowering. This one, the Koki, is that vermouth is pungent, very, very kind of dark fruity to me, and then this addition is a pretty good blend. I will make this again with a Very Old Barton. In terms of drinking it neat, I would say, for my money, I would say that a lot. I don't think that this would hold up at anything less than any other lower proofs. So, from what I've seen, when you see it in the stores, the 86, we're talking nominal dollars. I don't know that I'd buy the 80 proof, the 86 ever. I'm glad about this, though, only to know now what the difference is in terms of the bourbons that were kind of running around in this value range. I would say among bourbons that I've had for $20 or less, this one would be very, very good. I don't know, I would say a lot more about it. Now let's go to the 1792, which I believe right now is... Let me do another check. Sorry about that. Michelle's going to come out and drink this, or taste this, but I think she went out with a couple of friends or a friend earlier, so she might have already had a little bit of... 1792 small batch right now is at $24.99. Boy, that's really cool that they've lowered it. It looks like what they've done is kind of lowered the price on this one, and then some of the other ones like the single barrel or the higher proof version of this 1792 has kind of maybe gone up in price. I might be wrong about it, but I remember paying more like 30 for this at some time. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But at this price, this is probably our third, I would bet, bottle of 1792. Okay, this is bottled at 46.85%. Maybe I should check and see to make sure that small batch is still bottled with that. But it is at least our third bottle of this. Because Michelle likes it, and it's again, that's the key for her. She does not like... It's a strange thing with Michelle. I mean, we all have our tastes. high corn mash bills, low rye mash bills. For some reason, the what you lose in the rye spiciness and that kind of grassiness, she perceives as more pepper, which I kind of think might be just a higher corn mash bill. She's getting something from that corn that throws. She doesn't dig it, which is great. I mean, fine, that's your taste. This is a higher rye mash bill, but she likes this. This is one of the I don't want to say few, because she says she doesn't like bourbon, and she likes a lot of them, or a few of them. Let's put it that way. So this is very tasty bourbon. It has a movie butter popcorn, movie butter popcorn, movie. Wait, what am I trying to say? Movie popcorn, movie theater popcorn butter. Little hint of that, which I always like when you can find that in a bourbon. This is just a little better mouthfeel, a little more oomph as we drink going forward. 1792 is tasty. Cool bottle, comes in a bag, kind of like Crown Royal. I think they're still doing it. Definitely, I'm going to say now that they've brought this down to $25. I hope it's not an error on a website or something. I don't know that I would buy this over this. I would say actually, if you're looking for a nice good, I might start naming this the value bourbon. I would bet that maybe they drop this down in the price to compete with Wild Turkey 101. I just remember this 1792 as more of a $32 bourbon. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. So I'm going to wrap it up here. In a cocktail, Very Old Barton. Like I said, you're going to look on the bottom of the shelf, and you'll never see this, and all of a sudden this will pop up. And then, like I said, you have to kind of have your eyes open. I'm not a bourbon hunter because I don't spend money on markup just because someone says it's good. I want to pay retail prices. Occasionally, I'll do something that looks like it's marked up a little too much if I find it still within the reasonable, manufacturer sale price, and just they're marking it up because it's a small store. That I'll pay for. I'm not paying twice as much, 3 times as much as the MSRP for bourbon. Especially when it's a company that's still somewhat mass-produced, and I just don't get into that. Scotch, I might do that. That company right there, that Springbank bottle, I might do that if I found something special. But bourbon, I just don't do it. Great. Where was I going with this? The best thing I can say about this is it's nice and tasty. In the value area, I would say this one is really, really good. Not really, really good. Let's just say it's better than some of the other ones. I would drink this over, like I said, Jim Beam, Evan Williams' lowest offering. Like I said, I'm going to keep it around. The only thing, like I said, it's hard to find, so I would say, hey, give it a shot if it's under $20. But I would wonder if the mouthfeel, which is actually pretty good for something in this price tag. Yeah, I'm being a little bit generous on this one because I don't know. It's a new one. I want to try it. I'm going to give Very Old Barton a 7.7. Okay, 7.7. It didn't do enough for me to go out and get it. But again, if you're looking for something under $20, I would say this one would be your best bet. It's a little. Let me compare it to some other ones. Jim Beam always just tastes like water to me. It's just not potent enough at 40%. So we're talking like $2 difference here. What's another one that might be interesting? Evan Williams, the cheapest one, is a little too kind of cloyingly sweet, a little too caramel for me. This one at least has some depth to it, and if you like your bourbons with a little bit of spice, check this one out. The cask is a little more evident here in that it had to be charred a little bit. We're getting a little bit of that earthiness. In terms of a blender or a mixer, now I have not mixed the Manhattan with all of those brands that I just talked about, or distilleries I just talked about, but I really like this in here, and I will continue to use this in that drink. Whereas maybe a couple dollars more. I mean, I use Wild Turkey 101 for a blender. 1792, I'm going to say, is one of I'm kind of surprised by this as I'm drinking it. I really like this. Maybe one day, when maybe Wild Turkey 101 isn't on the shelf, and you want something close in price, check out the 1792 small batch. It's got a little bit of character. It's got a nice mouthfeel on it for this price. Nice bourbon. There you go. They can't all be 100%. I did kind of roll the dice here, but I always like trying to figure out like all these different ones that people say, well, this is my favorite budget. This, blah blah blah. This one, yeah, I'm glad I bought it. Okay, for under $20. That's it. If you want more, I think your place to go if you want the Barton Distillery is maybe leave the name and check out the 1792. I know they have like a sweet one, So what I mean by that is sweet is what they're doing here is there's a process where they take some of the backs. I don't know if it's called backset or whatever, but they blend it in to the next batch of processing, which helps a little bit without keeping things clean, bacteria wise and all that. It's all science that you don't understand, but that is called the sour mash process. They are using the sour mash process. They're using column stills. A lot of companies use the sour mash process. They don't brag about it, but that's what's happening here. But then I know that they do a 1792, which is also confusing because it's a separate website. Okay, the 1792, like you won't find Barton on the 1792 distillery website. I'm going to put it down in the comments below. But they have a full proof. They have a couple other variations. I think they have a sweet one. Check it out. I would like to buy another one of these quote unquote more premium small batch. I mean premium 1792s. And if anything, they had a warehouse collapse, so give them a little love. So. I can't remember what I said about 7.7. That's what I said. Very Old Barton 100 proof. I'm going to give it a 7.7. It's not a necessity, but again, you don't always see it. If you see it, it's going to be under $20. Pick it up, use it for whatever. Have it with an ice cube, whatever. 1792 small batch. I'm going to give this an 8.1. Okay, I do like the flavor on this. Going back and forth, you just see where this one has a little more depth, a little more richness. I don't know what they're doing to make that happen. This has won some nice little awards. I think it's the same mash bill as Very Old Barton, but the one thing that Very Old Barton does not have that this has is a little bit of that movie theater popcorn. It's nice and zingy. I really do like this. So, and I know Michelle likes it, so that's why we always keep it around. And if there's any bourbon that she's like, I like that one too, that's a good one. All right, folks, I'm going to get going here. Oh, the cocktail. It is very good in this cocktail. And again, remember that the final thing about the cocktail, I'm not a bartender or a mixologist, but I always like to see when you're making drinks with vermouth, there are sweet vermouth. There are many different styles, like the gulf between Dolan sweet vermouth and Cohi what is this? Stortino de Torino, whatever is Tortino, Al Pacino. I don't remember what it's called, but the gulf between with vermouth, the gulf between the sweetness and then the really kind of pungent fruit flavor, the very much like red wine flavor. You have to kind of measure that, or you have to measure that and kind of calculate do I want that and then also a sweet bourbon or sweet rye if we're making that drink? At least for me, I like this drink a lot. I think I'm gonna drink this drink and then call it a night. The bourbon is kind of hanging out here. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. All right, folks, that was a kind of a value bourbon review. Very Old Barton, 100%. It is what it is. Okay, might serve your purpose, might not. 1792 small batch. It's hard to say. I would say that's kind of at that price point. Now that they've lowered the price in here, and everything else is going up in price, that's a nice one. I like it. All right. For some of you that want to try some bourbons and maybe want to get some value for your money in the, I don't even want to call this like this the second tier. $25 is still kind of in the lower tier of what we're talking about. When I talk about that, I usually say value to about $25 is all kind of in one group. Then there's some little gray area. 30 to 40 is kind of the second tier, and then after 40, we start getting into quasi-premium. My numbers might be a little off, especially with inflation and Trump's garbage. But this one really is, at its price point, is very, very tasty. All right. And I mean, it's a cool bottle. And you get this velvet bag. I might, when I finish this bottle, use this drum tip. You're going to get a drum tip on Drinking a Week. I stole this one from Phil Grotto, although he said it's not his. Phil Grotto is a wonderful drummer. I just saw him a couple days ago. We were kind of on... he came out to see a concert I was playing at. Not because of me. But Phil Grotto, one of our Chicago's best jazz drummers for like, a million years. Great guy. I remember seeing him at the jam session, and they had, I don't know if it was his idea or he just kind of went with it, but you'd fill this up with some padding or like some socks, and then you would take the string. It was usually a Crown Royal bag, but now this is like a nice big ball, and you just hang it off the lug on the front of a bass drum, and a jazz bass drum that's like kind of ringy, and you haven't muffled it. It just lays right up against it. Oh, it's great. I actually have a couple of Crown Royal bags and my Blanton's bag that I've made for that front bass drum head muffler. Anyway, you should be able to get one of those when you buy 1792. All right, folks, I'm out. Done and dusted, to steal Ralphie's phrase. See you next time. Barton. Very Old Barton. Oh, man, I'm going to stroke my beard and say that Very Old Barton is, it's not really that old. It's not like old grand